Hello, YouTube land. Today we're continuing our Bible reading and commentary. We're going to be in Genesis 14 today, dealing with and reading through Lot's captivity and rescue, and God's covenant with Abraham. So, if you have a Bible, follow along. By the way, there's going to be a lot of names that I'm going to butcher, and I'm sorry you have to listen to me. But we're going to read every word of this Bible. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these joined together in the valley of Siddim. All these gathered together in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and the 13th they rebelled. So, what we have here is a group of alliances of city-states. So in those days, you had city-states where you had the walled city, the main city, and then you had villages around that city and land, and there was lots of disputes on land for resources, things like that. And whenever a nation would conquer another nation, they would become their servants, and they would pay tribute. All their goods and services went to the nation that conquered them. So that's what we have here. And as we'll read later, Abraham's nephew Lot gets caught up in that. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him came and attacked the Rephaim and Ashtaroth Karnaim, and Zuzim and Ham and Emim and Sheva, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the mountain of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and attacked all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hazon Tamar. And the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out and joined together in battle in the valley of Siddim against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of asphalt pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Some fell there, and the remainder fled into the mountains. Then they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. So, in the midst of all this city-state fighting, Lot gets caught up in it. Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in by the terebinth trees, and Mamre, the Amorite brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and they were allies with Abram. So Abram had some allies. Now when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. So once again, what we have here is, one thing I want to reiterate again, is that Abraham was very, 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 very wealthy. He had 300 trained servants, not just servants, trained servants who could go and do battle with city-states. So, verse 15, he divided his forces against them by night, and he and his servants attacked them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. So he brought back all the goods, and also he brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley, and his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him. So the people rebelled, Sodom and Gomorrah, but this guy Chedorlaomer still won in his kings. Verse 18, Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. So as we'll, so in the book of Hebrews, according to the order of Melchizedek, that is Jesus. So, at least to my knowledge. And he gave him a tithe of all. Now the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, and that you will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. Except only that the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Ner, Eshcol, and Memre, let them take their portion. So he said, I'm not taking anything. These kings with me, these guys, let them have their portion, lest men say that you've made me rich. Chapter 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield and your exceedingly great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? Then Abram said, Look, you have given me no offspring. Indeed, one born in my house is my heir. Verse 4, And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. Then he brought him outside and said, Look now toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able to number them. And he said to him, So shall your descendants be. And he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. So once again, in the faith chapter, we can go there now. Hebrews 11:17. By faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, In Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. So that verse, he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. Abram never saw the promises, but he had faith in them, and that was righteousness. It wasn't, good works, helps, but it was the faith. Then he said to him, verse 7. Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, how shall I know that I will inherit it? So he told him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all those to him and cut them in two, down the middle, and placed each opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds in two, and when the vultures came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abram, Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them for 400 years. So this is God telling Abram about the Israelites' captivity, as we'll read later on in Genesis. And they will afflict them for 400 years, and also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions. That's the Israelites plundering the Egyptians. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to pass, when the sun went down and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch that passed between those pieces. On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.